Today on the Coach of Why podcast, we have a very special guest. He was a two-time conference champion, as well as helped guide his team to a national championship while playing wide receiver at Butler Community College. He then took those talents to the next level playing at Kansas State. He has been at the school over 15 years collectively and has helped guide this team to a 119-36 record. In 2023, Butler was nationally ranked in 10 of the 15 JUCO polls, and they currently sit at number 14 in 2024. Today, we'd like to welcome Coach Brice Vignery to the Coach's Why podcast. With the world of coaching evolving and the carousel always changing, we're going to sit down with some coaches and we're going to figure out what they coach, how they coach, and most importantly, why they got into this profession. My name is Kason Wilkinson, and I am your host of the Coach's Why podcast.
That was my Coach's Why.
Welcome back to the Coach's Why podcast. Today we have a very special guest, our very first football coach to join our podcast today of the collegiate level. Today we have Coach Brice Vignery from Butler Community College. Coach, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. You know, it's kind of a rainy day. We didn't get rain for like 6 months, and I think they're going to try and make up for it the last 2 or 3 days. We've had like 3 inches. They're calling for another 2.5, 3 inches today. So, but other than that, it's a good Monday. We're getting our game plan in for our week. Got about 3 more games left and chance to win a championship. And so just getting all that stuff ironed out. And it's really good to be on the show with you today.
Of course, man. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I know Kansas kind of gets, you guys get a decent amount of precipitation, right? Rain, snow, things like that throughout the winter.
Yeah. I mean, we don't get as much snow. The northern half of the state gets a little bit more snow than we do. We're down here by Wichita. So they say here in Kansas, if you don't like the weather, wait 15 minutes because it'll change. 2 weeks ago, it was almost 100 degrees, and then it got to 60. Last week, the wind blew upwards of 60 miles an hour here during the day on a 60-degree day. So we kind of get a little bit of everything. So if you can play football and sports in the state of Kansas, you can play football and sports anywhere in the world. You just got to wait a little while and wait for it to change a little bit. But we've been in a little bit of a drought, but we've slowly started to get a little bit more rain. Hopefully, we have a better winter with some precipitation and all that kind of stuff.
I've been through Kansas a few times, and I give anybody who lives there and goes to there. Granted, maybe I just didn't go to anywhere cool that was worth it, but I just drove through it and it was cornfields. I'm like, dude, how is Kansas a thing? We're not in Kansas anymore, and I was so glad I wasn't there anymore. But I know there's some. I've actually talked to some people, and apparently Kansas is actually in that Midwest. Truly, there's some really nice areas. It's just more of a where you live at and probably where you drove through type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's very spread out. Obviously, you got Wichita, Salina, Topeka, Lawrence, Kansas City. Outside of that, you got to kind of drive to find places. There's a lot of hidden gems out here, I think, like there is in any state. Right. But when I was in college, they actually did a study when I was at Kansas State. Is Kansas flatter than a pancake? And they actually made a pancake, put it to scale, did the topography, and we are actually flatter than a pancake. So when the wind blows, there's not a whole lot to stop it out here. But as they say, this is God's country. If you've never driven out in the country where you can see every star at night, or you get to watch a sunrise or a sunset, it's a little bit different here because the population here isn't very big, and there's not a whole lot of smog and pollution and all that stuff. And we do produce a lot of wheat, corn, and cattle, and so there's a lot of things that come out of the state. But I wouldn't change anything in my life for not living here. It's been a blessing to live here, and it's just very, very salt of the earth kind of people for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Whenever you have that, when you grow up in, that's your roots, right? And you love it. There's nothing like it, right? And you're not trying to run away from it. So that's awesome. Everybody, if you guys are interested in going to Kansas, technically they're also the middle of the country too. So you're pinpoint dead center of the United States. So, if you want to go to Florida, obviously it's a long drive, but apparently that's a cool fact for you guys.
Yeah. So the actual center of the United States is like an hour from my hometown. It's just outside Smith Center, Kansas. There's a plaque that says the geographical center of the United States. So yeah, it's here. And it's not like a huge monument or anything, but there is a plaque that says that. And it's just, I'm from Concordia. So it's just up there by Smith Center, up by the border of Nebraska.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I appreciate you diving into it, and I'm kind of leads into the next question too. Because before we jump into your coaching journey and we talk about you as the coach, I would like to talk a little bit about you as the person. So kind of telling us a little bit where you grew up. I know you just mentioned that, but where you grew up and when you got involved in the sport of football.
So I'm from a really small town in north central Kansas called Concordia, about 50 miles north of Salina, Kansas, which is kind of the biggest town up in that area. Raised by both my parents. I have two older brothers and a twin sister.
That's cool.
And again, growing up in a small town, you learn, I wouldn't necessarily say old fashioned values, but everybody kind of knows everybody. You learn how to treat people. You learn how to communicate with people. People depend on you to do certain things. And, my mom and dad both worked in the school district up there, my entire life. And, there's not even to this day, you can't drive down the street without waving to somebody and knowing somebody. And, you really get to care about your community and your people. And I think that's where this whole coaching thing started for me was, my dad coached Pee Wee baseball for 27 years, I believe.
Oh, wow.
And just watching him, he coached me, he coached my two brothers, and just watching him do what he did at the the Pee Wee level and how much he impacted kids and how much, kids depended on him. I saw at an early age that's valuable to people, because not everybody has, that person in their life that they can depend on or count on and do all those things. And as I got, into playing a little bit more sports, I was really fortunate to have a lot of really, really good coaches. And, I think back to the ages of probably 8 to 13 or 14, we had the same baseball. We had a travel baseball team, same group of guys, same group of dads coached it. And the stability of that and being coached hard and learning those things, Rod Stack and Bruce Peterson and Joe Gettard, all those guys did so much for me at a young age. You don't realize those things until you get older, as you look back on those lessons and that hard coaching, but they did so much to kind of groom me who I am. And then you get into, junior high and high school. My high school coach had a huge impact on me, Ron Colwell, who's actually still coaching, not at Concordia, he's at Grove High School in Oklahoma. He had a huge impact on me in the development side of the mental side of the game. I always loved football. I always loved competing, but when things didn't go my way, I didn't handle it the best. I think that's with a lot of young players and a lot of young people is they don't know how to handle failure, and they don't know how to, see that you fail to succeed and you fail because you didn't do something. And, him and especially my dad, they had a big part in why I kind of became who I was. Because I'll tell you, going into my freshman year of high school, I wasn't the most organized person. I wasn't the most, dedicated to this. And those two guys really showed me what I can do if I prioritize things and I put things in perspective and I work extremely hard. And, I was fortunate enough to play early in my high school career. As a sophomore, I got to play quite a bit. And then as a junior and senior, obviously I was a starter both ways and was getting a number of looks and got a number of opportunities and didn't know much about junior college. Coach Morrill and Coach Schaff, who were here at the time, came and visited me. I knew, kids from my high school went to Garden City or Coffeyville. So I didn't really know much about Butler. Then you get down and you're like, holy cow, these guys win. And, at that time they were coming off of 5 straight conference championships and, a couple national championship appearances. And so I was like, yeah, I want to come here. I want to win. Through high school, my senior year, I think we were 6-5. Before that, we were 3-6, 2-7. So I didn't really, I wanted to win, but I didn't know what it felt like to win and see what that could do. And, I come to Butler my first year, we go 11-1. And I'm just like, yeah, I've got to have this. It feeds me. It's the next year we ended up going undefeated, won a national championship. So in 2 years, I went 23-1, 2 conference championships and a national championship. And those memories with those coaches, with those teammates of mine really set up the next 18 years of my life, because for the first time, I got that taste of really a lot of success and what it took to get that success. Because success is very hard to have. You got to work extremely hard. I mean, you look at any level of football or any sport, it doesn't have to just be football, any sport. Anybody that can sustain success for a long period of time, it's difficult because you got to do a lot of things right. You got to do a lot of hard work and a lot of those things. And so I figured that out. I had the opportunity to go on and play at Kansas State University. My first year there, I played for Coach Ron Prince. And then my last year, Coach Schneider took back over, and him and, Coach Schneider and Troy Morrill, the guy that I played for here at Butler, are very, very similar in how they approach things, how they treat people. how the programs run and all those things. So in my eyes, I felt like I got to play for two of the best coaches in college football. And, obviously my career at K-State, I got to play, I got to do things. It didn't ultimately end the way you necessarily want it to. There was a lot of ups and downs at that time. Graduated from there, was going to go be a teacher. I wanted to be a teacher. I saw how much they helped me in high school. College coaching was not on the radar. Like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to recruit. I don't want anything to do with that. I didn't want to go be a graduate assistant. I didn't want to go back to when I was done, I was like, I'm done with school. I want to have a break. I want to go make some money and do that stuff. It would have been July of 2010. I get a phone call from Coach Morrill and asked what I was doing, asked if I wanted to, come help and come here. I said, sure. What's it going to pay? He said, nothing.
Oh, yeah.
And a day later, I packed my car and I drove down here and I worked here. My first job as the assistant wide receivers coach here at Butler in 2010. That's really where it sparked for me, to get to see, the impact that you can have. And that first year coaching, especially right out of college, when you get behind the curtain, is completely different. You're like, I didn't know all this stuff happened. I didn't know you did this. I didn't know we worked 17 hours a day. I didn't know these things. And I'm not that old, but even in 2010, Huddle was just getting started, the software we use for film. And so we still did everything by VHS and by DVD.
Oh, yeah.
And, I had the big 18-inch by 11-inch piece of paper, and I would write out, I'd watch film and I'd have to write it out and then calculate the tendency. And so I really got to learn how to do it kind of the hard way, but the way you really, really learn football. Got to do that for a year. Went to a national championship in 2010, lost by a point, lost 13-12. That was a heartbreaker.
Sure. Yeah.
After that season, I got offered a job at Kansas Wesleyan, which is in Salina. First full-time paying job, went up there. Got a lot of duties thrown on me. Again, I'm only 23 years old. Didn't really know what I was doing. All I saw was, hey, they're going to pay me a little bit of money with free housing. And
why not?
I jumped on it. I got to work for a really good coach in Dave Dallas, who'd been there, I think, at that time, probably 16 or 17 years. Learned a lot of valuable lessons from him. And, the offensive coordinator I worked for, Chris Snyder, and, Bob Fry, the defensive coordinator, a lot of experienced coaches. I learned a lot of stuff. Got to the end of the season and realized I didn't know as much as I thought I knew.
Right.
And, Butler had an opening to come back, and I called Coach Moore, and I came back and actually got on the payroll this time and was coaching running backs. And, that's really where it started for me is, I sat in his office and I asked him, what do I need to do to set myself up for success in this business? How do I become a head coach? And he says, sit back, take notes, and just absorb everything. And so really from January of 2012 until now, that's what I still do. I keep, I take notes every day. I keep a journal every day. I write things down. I keep a folder for every week. So if I have to go back and view it, I can. And I really just dedicated myself to football. At that time I wasn't in a relationship. It was just me and football. That was my relationship.
Yep.
I was really just focused on what can I do? How can I become the best recruiter, the best coach, and eventually be able to move up in this business. Ultimately later that year, I started dating someone and again, she's my wife now. But you go through that and you're like, okay, this is my life. This is what I do. Can you handle this? And she's awesome. Like she's the best thing that's ever happened to me. And those first couple of years, I'd been single and I'd been doing this business for a couple of years. I had to learn how to balance some things, with the relationship now and now with football. But I think the number one thing that I did over those next from really 2012 to 2014 is my next step is I wanted to be an offensive coordinator. What did I need to do to put myself in position to do that? And so I just absorbed everything. I coached, I coached tight ends and fullbacks, receivers, running backs. I sat in all the quarterback meetings. I watched and I learned how to do all those things. Had a really good run there from 2012 to 2014. At the end of the 2014 season, my wife and I were going to move to Winona State, actually, in Minnesota.
Okay. Yep.
To go be a graduate assistant. I was like, okay, this is my next role. Division II level, I actually get to coach a position. I'd already done that for 4 or 5 years, so I'm ready for that, take on a bigger recruiting role. And so we were going there. And then on, I think it was like December 18th or 19th, I get a phone call from our head coach saying, I just retired. I'm going to step down. And I'm just, I never would have thought that. But he decided to step down. Our house was almost half packed. We're leaving after Christmas to move. My wife had already accepted a job. We had put it down. Like, I don't know if we'd put the down payment on our apartment yet or our house, wherever we were living, but we were going. Like, we were set to go there. Our defensive coordinator ended up getting the head job here, and I got promoted to be the offensive coordinator. So I decided, was I going to stay here and do that, or was I going to go? I chose to stay here for a number of reasons, but mainly just loyalty to the program. They'd done so much for me, and I wanted to give back to the program as much as I could. And so, I became an offensive coordinator at what year? How old was I in that? I was 10 years, so 25. I was an offensive coordinator. I was very fortunate that first year. I had Ben Powers on that team, who went on and plays. He currently plays for the Denver Broncos.
Yep.
Michael Gallup at wide receiver.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Just retired.
Yeah.
I had Byron Pringle at wide receiver, who played at Kansas State, who's still with the Commanders. So I had a really good offense, and
That's so cool.
Our running back that year rushed for 1,100 yards. Went to Minnesota, played for the Vikings for a couple of years. So we had 4 NFL guys on our offense. So it wasn't bad if we ran the ball to the right, or we handed it to 21, or threw it to those 2 guys. And so that first year was super easy. We ran 8 or 9 plays. We had a really good quarterback. We had a really good defense. We went 9-2. We won our conference. I'm like, hey, this is easy. Like, what? Yeah. This wasn't as hard as I thought.
Yeah. Right.
We lose all those guys, and then the next year we played, I think, on the entire team of the 63-man roster, I think 42 of them were freshmen the next year.
Wow.
Because we lost so many players. And then the coaching sets in. And then then you get I didn't expect that to happen. Well, we didn't have freshmen last year. And so that 2016 year was really where I took a lot of lumps, and I took a lot of hard criticism, and a lot of things where I had to figure things out as I was coaching, and you had to evolve, and quickly you learn as a coach that you are who your players are, and they're a direct reflection of you. And so that year we still ended up going, that year we went 7-6 to a bowl game, wasn't up to standard. I took a lot of the blame for a lot of those things. We had leads in those games, and, we turned the ball over at certain times, but that season made me a better coach. Then you come back the next year, we went 8-3, finished top 10 in the country. Next year, 8-3 again. I think 2017 was our best year. We averaged 40 some points a game. We had 43 Division I players on that team. We had another 5 or 6 NFL guys on that team. It was a lot of fun to coach them. And then we started leading into the 18, 19, 20. As you get closer to COVID was interesting. I was still the offensive coordinator at that time. COVID hits, and basically everybody just went home. And so I remember they came into our office and said, okay, you guys aren't going to be allowed to be here. Take what you need. And I just packed all my stuff up, took it home, set it up in our office. And at that time, my wife and I had a 3-year-old. And, that was the most time, those 6 months, that was the most time I'd ever spent consecutively with my son. He was born in August of 2017. So you can imagine, like, coaching and doing that and having a season, and then obviously through recruiting and all that. And so that was, I think, as much as COVID wasn't good for a lot of people, I think it was really good for me because I got to be a dad. I got to be a dad every day. That's what I did. I was a stay-at-home dad. My wife was a physical therapist, and so she worked every day. And so it was just me and Cooper every day. We got our little routine. We lived on the golf course. I sent my wife a picture. I went and bought a golf cart one day.
That was a
golf. And to me, I think that was the best 6 months for me, because I got to do things that I hadn't done in the first 3 years of his life for those 6 months. Just be there every day and get to know each other and do those things. And then, you come out of COVID, we got that fall. We didn't practice. We didn't play any games in that fall. You go into the spring, we played a spring season. So we played a spring season, had 8 weeks off, and played a 10-game season or a 12-game season. So we played 18, 19 games within 6 months of each other. Right. And so, that COVID year was just, that spring was just difficult in every aspect of the word. The only silver lining with the whole COVID is us being in junior college, we got to keep guys for 3 years. And so the fall of 21 and the fall of 22, we had a lot of guys in our program that had been here for a while. And so, after the 21 season, our head coach left and took a Division I job. And I was fortunate enough to slide into being the head coach here. First season went 8-4. Last year was decimated with injuries. First time really in my career we had a lot of injuries and went 5-5. And then this year we're sitting 5-3, number 10 in the country, chance to win a conference championship here in the next couple of weeks. And it's just a good position to be in. So, as I look at my journey from Pee Wee baseball to now, it's just been a collective effort of a lot of people. I can't say I'm here because of me, because a lot of people have shaped me, and a lot of people have helped me, and a lot of people have listened, and a lot of people have taken time out of their day to help me on my journey. And our journey is all about the people that you're doing it with. And that's what I tell kids when I recruit them here to Butler. Is what's different about here is, December 31st will mark 18 years for me here as a player and as a coach. 18 years. Our defensive coordinator marked 12 years for him. So people that come here stay here. And I think, you look around the world, and especially in our industry, there's not a lot of continuity. There's not a lot of longevity.
Loyalty. Yeah.
I mean, you look at, okay, Kurt Ferentz at Iowa has been there forever. Coach Winningham at Utah has been there forever. Coach Saban was there forever. He is now retired. Other than that, who's the next longest tenured coach? I mean, everybody's 2 years, 3 years, 1 year.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to think of who would be the next longest. Coach Franklin's been at Penn State for, I think, 12 years.
Penn State for 12 years, yeah. I mean, what, Ryan Day maybe? He's been there for
even
6?
then, I think he's only been the head coach since 2019.
Yeah, that's true.
It seems longer than that, but he hasn't been there for, over 5-6 years.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Longevity and continuity is huge for me. And, I think that's what keeps me here is, comfortability, with me knowing really everybody in town, the whole school. It's a lot of the same teachers when I went to school here. And then having guys on our staff that I trust, guys on our staff that I know are going to do the right thing, not only by our kids, but by the program. And I think if you look at any really successful program, that's when it starts internally and bleeds out. That's where you can really start to breed success from that. And, when I took this job, I talked to my old head coach, and I was like, hey, I'm just trying not to screw it up. Because he did so many good things when he was here. I mean, he was 154-22 as a head coach and won 5
impressive.
national championships. And I got the opportunity to work beside and play for a coach in Steve Bratt that was here for 44 or 42 years, dedicated 4 decades of his life to this place and to help kids and to put kids in better situations in their life. And that's what I'm teaching our kids now. That's why we do what we do. Yeah, absolutely. So it's been kind of I haven't really bounced around. Obviously I've only worked here in Kansas Wesleyan. But I've had a lot of experiences for sure, through my career, and I look forward to more of them for sure.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that dive in. I'm actually glad you spoke on all that stuff, because you actually answered a lot of questions that I didn't even have to ask you. Now I can actually dive into probably more fun questions.
Yeah,
at least for me, for sure. I actually wrote down a few, and some of them, they may kind of go back and forth on like where, the pieces of when you spoke on them, but I think that they're I don't know. I like these questions. And then I actually have some, I really like that you brought up the schedule thing too. And because I was looking at that, and you guys have had really close games to some at the time they were ranked, right? Like the first game of the year lost by 3 to, at that time, North, what are they? Neo, or not Neo. Yeah. And then obviously you guys beat number 1 Hutchinson. You guys beat 15 Highland at the time. You lost to number 3 Snow College at that time. And then obviously this last week was a tough week, but you guys have been a very, top tier team this year. And this may relay to going back to like one of the questions I have, but so like, I know you said towards the beginning, you said that a lot of your coaches shaped who you are mentally on how to like overcome the L's, right? Or a defeat and things like that. And a lot of kids aren't taught that. So when it comes to you on like the mental side of coaching these kids, obviously a staff makes a big difference as well. But is that something that you really focus on, is not being too high on your wins, but not being too low on a loss, right? And that might play into that schedule thing, right? Like mentioning every other ranked game has been really, really close, and you've beat previous number 1s. And then this week was a tough week, and so for any player, right, I don't really care who you are, that's probably going to be sitting in their head a little bit, regardless of what it is. So is that something that you focus on, when translating that, what you learned to these kiddos?
Yeah. So early in training camp, we get 2.5 weeks of training camp. And those 2.5 weeks obviously is dedicated to football, but it's also dedicated to the development of our team mentally, physically, and teaching them our way. Especially now, guys that are returning should know it. It's just really getting those freshmen understanding, or any transfers, to understand what is our culture and why do we do what we do. And I start every team meeting in the fall with, we have to understand as a group, coaches, trainers, student coaches, how to win and how to lose. And we have to understand that going into the game, we have a 50-50 shot to win or to lose before the game's even kicked off. What have we done Sunday through Saturday before kickoff to tilt it in our favor to give ourselves the best chance to go win? And if you can, you look at any game that you win, you probably did a lot of things correct. You didn't have unforced errors. You didn't have penalties. You didn't hurt the team. You played smart situational football. You played complementary football. You got takeaways. You put the ball in, and then you flip it around on the other side. And if you lose a game, well, you probably didn't do one or two things. And it just comes down to the details of how you do those things. And you reference that opening game of the year. We took them to overtime. We lost 20 by 3. I think it was 27-24, I think is what the score was.
26-23. Yeah.
Yeah. But we gave up a fake field goal. We gave up a fake punt. And then on our second drive on offense, we had 30 yards in penalties. So those three things right there is why we lost. Like, it's not this one thing. It's those three critical situations that you try and limit, that you try and recreate as much as you can, especially in the off season and in training camp, to get them to understand this is a critical situation. We have to go out there and, it's, third and whatever. We got to expect them to do this on defense, or it's third and whatever on offense. We got to get a first down, or, we got to flip the field because we got the win and make them go into the win. It's all those critical situations that you got to get, especially young people, because unfortunately we don't have juniors and seniors and fifth year seniors and COVID seniors. We don't have those here.
6, 7 seniors. Yeah.
We've got a lot of young, half our team's freshmen. And so getting them to understand all these things amidst being away from home for the first time, being in college for the first time, all these things. So it's really a collective effort from our coaches, and really we lean a lot on our older guys because our off-season program is pretty strenuous. We put them through a lot. We try and push them mentally and physically as much as we can, just because, again, when they leave here, they have to be ready to go play. You can be able to play football. That's perfectly fine. But if you can't handle all the other things, you look at how athletics has changed. It's an investment now. It's a financial investment. And so when a coach comes in here and sits and talks with me or any of our coaches, if we're saying, hey, this kid can come in and play for you, well, are they going to go to class? Are they going to do this? Do they understand how to compete? Do they understand how to win? Because that's what it's really turned into. And we got to get our kids to understand that's what this world is in athletics now. And so we do push our kids very, very hard. But back to your question, we do teach them, again, we're going to win because of this and we're going to lose because of this. And the work that you put in throughout the week, if we get to the end of the week and we didn't practice well, then we shouldn't really,
probably
at that point, it's going to be tipping the other way. If we did all these things, we were on time, because you are a direct reflection of who you are during the week on Saturday night. That's, if you were late, if you didn't do something on Tuesday in practice, I can't really expect you to do it, and you did it wrong every day, I can't really expect you to do it right on Saturday. So being detailed and getting those things corrected throughout the week is why you go win really on Saturdays and give yourself the best chance.
You're not the only coach that I've heard say that, and from other sports too. I just had one with the volleyball coach, and he's the exact same way. And I felt the same way as wrestling coach. If we do not have a good practice leading up to whatever days it is, right? Wrestling is a little bit different, right? We might have 2 or 3 things throughout the week where it's like we have something on Tuesday, and then we have a 2-day tournament Friday, Saturday. But that's even more. You have to be even more mentally engaged to be like, well, I only have 3 days of practice this week. Right. I have to do things Monday, and that's after having you probably ate like trash on Sunday because you had a long tournament Friday, Saturday. So it's a lot of strain on them too, and even from young age to that. So being in that mental stage is crucial, and being focused, laced, or locked in every single time you lace up is very important. So that kind of leads to the idea of. And I don't really dive into schemes that much, just because I think that's more of a secondary, that's something I like to ask if we were to get you back on the podcast.
Right.
But it's more of the question that's like, so you've played for X amount of coaches throughout high school. You've played, at Butler, and then you played at Kansas State, and then you coached for, Wesleyan, and then obviously you had all these other coaches that you've coached under. So when it comes to like your scheme now, not asking you to dive in, but do you think that playing for different schemes as well as coaching under different schemes has really helped you round out a scheme that works for not only you as the coach, but kind of able to adjust for your personnel that you are able to recruit every year?
Oh, absolutely. I think, in high school, we did a certain thing. At Butler, we did a certain thing, and they weren't the same. Then you go to Kansas State, and they weren't the same. When I was at Kansas Wesleyan, they weren't the same. And, I keep everything. And so when I became an offensive coordinator, I was like, okay, what do I want? What do I want our offense to be? I love pro-style offenses. I love the long, wordy plays. I love that. But can our kids handle it? Can our kids understand it? And so you just have to find a way to morph it all together. And so somebody asked, what is your offense? Like, what would you name? Is it the air raid? Is it pro style? And I'm like, well, if I had to narrow it down, it'd be a spread pro tempo team.
Spread pro tempo. Okay.
Yeah, and what I mean by that is we have the ability to line up in anything from, double tight fullback, no receivers, to completely empty and everything in between. Yeah. We're going to run multiple formations. We're only going to run about 12 to 13 plays, but we're going to window dress it up. We're going to have a lot of tempo. I didn't really get into tempo until 2019 is when I got into tempo, the early stages of it. And as it evolves and you watch, you can get a little bit more creative with formations and motions and right. What you want to do, how you can manipulate, because really college athletics is what they can handle, obviously. And so the easier you can make it, the faster they're going to play. Right. And so just finding the best way to install it, the best way to, okay. And I always had 2 install sheets. So I would have an install sheet for training camp, and then I had a season install. So, you get to week 1, here's what we're going to install. Week 2, here's what we're going to install. And so It was based on, and kind of how my offense works is every look should work versus we should have an answer to everything. Everything runs through our center and our quarterback. I want those to be the only 2 guys that have to think. Just let everybody else play fast. But we've had a lot of success with it in the past, and just keep evolving that and keep learning different ways to do things. There's all these coaches across the country. I wish I could be one of those, a 4-year coach. They have strength staffs. They have all these things. We are the strength staff, and we are those things. Right. So as much time as I can get to sit down in clinic with guys and learn new things, I will in the off season. It's just finding those times and being smart with the time. And, but again, just evolving and doing new things year in and year out. And that's where you can kind of, when it comes to recruiting, is like, you can show them, okay, this is what our offense may be because this is our personnel. This is what our offense could be. Because in my, whatever many years here, we've kind of had a little bit of everything. I've won in 2019, we won our last 3 games against 3 ranked opponents with a true freshman quarterback that we look completely different. We went from, I think we were, what were we in that year? Averaging 40-some points a game, 480 yards a game, lighting it up. Quarterback gets hurt, backup doesn't perform as well as he should. And we go to the 3rd string guy as the freshman. He comes in, and we completely changed our offense in 4 days. But it was just a certain amount of things to tailor it to what our personnel was. And we went out and, we beat the number 3 team in the country. And then we won our bowl game. And our ability to do that, we were able to grow. I was able to grow off of that. It's like, oh, now I can do those things.
We can do that, yeah.
And so now that gets thrown into your install schedule to be like, okay, if we get in this situation, we can do this. And so in all my years here, it's awesome to go back and look at all the film that I have, because there's really not a situation or a team or a defense or something where I haven't seen a scheme or anything like that. Yeah, I focus on some personnels when it comes to game planning, but we always had a saying, it's not about the who, or it's not about the what, it's about the who. Like, let's go do what we do. Right. Let's go be us and focus on what we can control. And when you get to going extremely fast, you can force a defense to play the exact same way. I mean, you look at what Coach Kiffin does at Ole Miss. I mean, the in-head communication for him is phenomenal. Like, we don't have that yet. Hopefully we get it in the next year or 2, but having that to be able to talk to those young quarterbacks to say, okay, here's where the ball, here's your read, this would be great. And it just allows you to go even faster. And so, but when you go faster, you force the defense to, choose what they want to do. Do you want to play zone, or are you going to bring pressure? And what do you want to do? And so really, as you look at coaching the quarterbacks through that, I always tell our kids, we're going faster than we think we are. I know we're pushing the envelope, we're going, but to the defense, we're flying, and they got to get their call and they got to get lined up. And so you just build in all these rules for these kids. And again, it's just for that quarterback and center to make sure we're protected. Quarterback knows where the ball's going. Let those receivers play extremely fast, tight ends, running backs. I don't want them to really do a whole lot of thinking. Just make it go through the quarterback and the center. So, but yeah, I would say spread pro tempo team is kind of what I am. I read a book in college about Bo Schembechler, who was at the University of Michigan. Can't win a championship without tight end and a fullback and a really good defense. And so I'm a firm believer of tight end fullbacks, and I use them as many ways as I can. I want to have a guy on the field because you can, with as athletic as they are now. I mean, we've got a 6'5", 250-pound kid that can run, and you put them at receiver. Now they got to match. What do they want to do? Do they want to play the run strength, or the pass strength?
Yeah.
And so now you can manipulate a lot of things. I always tell people, you can't pay me enough to be a defense coordinator. Like there's nothing on that side of the ball that
it's funny.
I would want.
Yeah, I grew up and that's what I did. I was a big defensive guy, and when I got to college, I got to play on the defensive side of the ball. And I think about it, I'm like, yeah, I think I would be able to. I say this, I think I'd be okay on the defensive side of the ball. And then I just realized as you're explaining some of these things, I'm like, it actually might be more difficult than, obviously anything's more difficult, right? I'm talking from the sideline or as like a fan of football, but it's like. Yeah, 6'5". I can't put my slot guy on that. Like I can't put my nickel. I can't bring a nickel down for that, or I have to. And he's probably gonna outrun my outside linebacker, so I can't really do like. It's probably really really difficult to be a defensive guy in today's world. So I appreciate that dive in. That's crazy. I never thought about that.
Our defense coordinator, him and I played here together. We have a 20-year relationship. That's where he does such a good job of finding that tendency of the offense and taking away that and making them change throughout the game. So a couple games this year, teams wanted to be a certain thing and we took it away from them. They had to change during the game. And when you have to change your philosophy of what you wanted to do all week, now the hand is in the defense. And I think that's what really good defense coordinators do is they find out what that tendency is, whether you can motion and they dive in and they find that tendency, even as far as, okay, the quarterback's feet are going to be like this. He's throwing the ball to the right. Like they dive in that far. To know, okay, when the left tackle's hand is here or here, it's a run or a pass. Like those are the tendencies
they dive deep into that type of stuff.
And it allows you to have a more, confident play call. Even if they do go fast, you can see those things and teach your guys to line up in the right spots.
Heck yeah,
and having better play always helps too.
Of course, yeah. Going back to the schedule, I'll kind of finish this up for us. I have 2 or 3 questions that a lot of coaches they stick around to hear, but I just have one question I've been itching to do, and I actually have 2, but I'll wait for that first one. One of them is about recruiting, but we can wait on that. Just as being a JUCO coach, how you transition or how you get these 2-year guys, how the bounce back, all that stuff works. But I'll save that one for later. This one's just curious because I'm sure you've got this a lot in the media, but I've never really had the chance to talk to anybody, but you were around at Butler during the whole time of Last Chance U and Indy and all that stuff, right? So my question for you is how was there any change in either the way the games were played or media around that time, or even like the athletes who want to come to your school? Like, was there anything that changed around the state of Kansas or for you in particular after Last Chance U came to Indy?
No. A lot of people don't know this, but Last Chance U tried to come here in 2013 when they were starting the show.
Oh, really?
They actually wanted to do it here at Butler, and our head coach at the time said, we're not going to. And I think they went to East Mississippi for 2 years and they came to Independence. But to answer your question, no, it didn't change anything for us. There's some kids that chose to go to Indy because of the TV show and because of certain things. But no, I mean, we didn't hype it up to be like, hey, we're going to be on this show or anything like that. They wanted, they wanted to come. And when we played them both years, they wanted to come and be like at our facility throughout the week and kind of put it in the show. And we kind of put an axe on that. Like, no, this is just another game to us. Yeah. We don't need to hype it up to any more than what it is. The only difference is when you played them, there's cameras everywhere. They've got their media. Like I know, like when they played at our stadium in 2017, I think that was it was the first year it was there, and we beat them. They had like 10 or so tenths of media people on their sideline. It was a production for sure. But we didn't recruit for it. Like, hey, you're going to come here. Maybe we didn't use that. And we didn't approach the game any differently than we would have if it wasn't there.
If it wasn't there. Okay.
Yeah,
that's cool. I just had to ask that question.
I mean, but yeah,
I saw it and I was like, that's crazy.
It gets talked, like, especially when it was there, it gets talked about a lot in recruiting. And, sometimes, final editorial control, you can take anybody's worst 30 minutes of a day and turn it into something bad. Right. I think, to a certain extent, I think that TV show gives this level a bad rap, because that's not typically how it goes. Now, you coach your guys a little differently at this level. Absolutely. It is a different level. It's a different everything, because everybody has basically when you step on campus, you have a time clock. Like, I got to be out by this time or this time. What am I doing to put so there is a little bit more urgency when it comes to those things. It's not like you're at a 4-year and you got plenty of time to do this stuff. And, but no, we didn't put any more emphasis on it than there already was. Yeah.
I gotcha. Okay. Do you plan on, or is like going 4-year, something that's ran around in your thought or with your family, like getting to a 4-year, or are you pretty content? Which I know you said you've been there for loyalty for 18 years. So you've been there for a while, at least like I know sporadically, right? You've spent a lot of time there in general. Is that something you've thought about doing again, going to the next level for you?
For me, it's going to come down to, obviously, is it a good situation for myself and my family? But for me to leave, it's got to be for the right person, the right people, the right situation. I'm not actively looking to leave. Let's put it that way. Like, yeah, I got offered a couple jobs in the last 3 or 4 years, but didn't feel like it was the right fit. So
I like that.
Kind of around to answer that. Like, it's got to be pretty special for me to go, or
right.
But it's got to fit myself. It's got to fit my family. It's got to fit everything, because everything for us fits here now.
Right.
Now, if the opportunity come around, like, yeah, you're definitely going to look into it, do some research and all that stuff, but not actively calling people and searching.
Right.
If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Like,
yeah. I just asked that question because, I talked to a lot of different college, different coaches, high school through that. And, a lot of the assistants that are in high school, they're like, yeah, I want to run my own program. But then when you start seeing like college coaches you speak to, it's like, it's changes, right? Like you might be running your own program at a JUCO level or like an AI level, but that doesn't mean you want to go to a D2 or, it doesn't mean you want to go to the next level. So right. I asked that question just because it's kind of see where your space is.
I think long term, yeah, I'd eventually like to. I mean, that's my ultimate goal, is to do this at the highest level I can, but I'm not going to sacrifice certain things just to say I did it. It's got to be the right situation with the right people at the right time. Because I really, really enjoy what I do, because I firmly believe not everybody can coach junior college football. It's very much an art. It takes a certain people to do it and to do it well. And, I think the things that I've learned here, the higher up I would go, let's say I get offered a job at XYZ or whatever, it's the top level. The higher you move up, the more people you get, the less you have to do. And I like to see the program go. I like to have my finger in a little bit of everything. Because in my time at Butler, there's literally no job in this program I haven't done. Right. Even back when we played on grass, like I helped Coach Bratt run the equipment room for years. So getting home and then start cleaning and scrubbing uniforms after we played on grass, and planning travel, planning recruiting visits, like being able to do all those things has made me kind of who I am. And so it does give me a different perspective on things. So if I were to get a job or whatever, I would have a lot of experience to give opinions on those types of things. But
right.
No, I'm not. If it happens, it happens. I want to keep helping our kids as much as I can, and our coaches.
I like it.
And my goal is to get our kids out of here. And then we got a number of young coaches. How about our young coaches get jobs and move up?
For sure.
I'm married. We have 2 kids, and, my in-laws are very close. My parents are very close. And so, yeah, to move, it's got to be like the perfect storm, the right situation, sure. The right everything for the right people. And, I've got to know a lot of people in my career, and there's some people that I would without a doubt if they called, and because I trust them that much, and I know that I think the same way they do, and they're going to have the same values that I have, and so. But no, actively no. Like right now, no.
That's fair. Hey, you're doing a good job there, and I understand completely. I mean, why not? Why not go get a natty under your own belt first, right?
Yeah.
And so I that kind of leads into. So I have 2 questions left, and you can dive in as much as you'd like. But these are, there's really 4, but these 2 I think are going to be the most important for me as well as for the listeners. So you can dive in as much as you'd like, or keep it as brief as you like. So this is question number 1. How do you build a successful program on the level of wins and longevity? So there's a preface to that one. Normally it's like, how do you build a team off of like culture and buy-in and mindset? I know you've kind of dove in on that earlier a little bit, so we're not going to, if you want to, you can, but realistically, I'd like to know how you build, you've been in programs that are successful. So how do you build a team currently, and how do you plan on building a team, on wins and longevity, and how do you sustain that over time?
Consistency with your message, consistency in your actions, consistency in how you go about every day. Because the one thing that I've learned in all my coaching is if you're going to be all over the place, the kids are going to be all over the place. Right. You can't live in the gray area. You can't live in the, well, maybe this is what it is. This is how we're going to do things. And being consistent with your message, and the message from me to the coaches to the players to everybody else. It's got to kind of run all the way through it. And you got to have kids that want to compete and kids that want to do it. Right. And that to me is how you do it. And you don't build your culture during the season. Your culture is built in the off season from January to August. And once that culture is right, you bring freshmen into the mix, and now they learn from those older guys, and then they carry it on to the next thing. And you just keep carrying it on, and you got to be consistent with it. Everybody's got to be on board with it. Everybody's got to trust the vision of what we're doing and why we're doing it. Because you look at any university or college from our level to the NFL. Right. I guarantee if a team isn't successful, they're going to go back and go, well, we weren't consistent here. We didn't do this here. We didn't do that. And it's not about being the cool guy sometimes. It's about, okay, this is what's best. I tell our kids all the time, I make decisions based on what's best for Butler, not myself, not our defensive staff, not our offensive staff, not our, like, what's best for Butler, because that's everything to me, because this place has made me who I am. And so I want to try and do everything in my power to give back to the people that allowed me to do what I do. And B, teach our kids how to do it, because when they leave here, they're going to carry those traits with them. Right. And in our business of what we do, I mean, we send our kids onto a program, they go play. I want those kids to be so good that program wants to come back and get another kid. And that's the only way you create that bridge between those schools. If we weren't doing it the right way, then nobody would want to come back and get our players, no matter how good we were. Because they know, well, this kid's not going to do this. This kid's not going to, that's that standard of that program. And, you get that word gets thrown around so much as the standard. The standard here was set back in the mid 90s when this thing started, really, when they got this thing off the ground. Really, the standard was set in 1981 by our original head coach, Fane Hinson, who's actually my neighbor, who won the first championship here. That's when it started. It just trickled down. I mean, you think about this. I mean, Butler's only had 4 head coaches since 1996. So longevity and people that want to be here and people that care, and then keeping guys in the program, keeping, this program is very, very much a blue blood of this level. Right. Keeping guys that were in the program and bringing guys back that were players to stay in the program, because that's the only way in my opinion, you get that message to bleed. And they look at me. Yeah, I know I'll be 37 this month, but they can look at me and go, okay, he did this. Like, he played here. He played he's not just filling me full of smoke. And so it's just about being consistent in your message and getting the kids to buy into that.
Right. And so those play hand in hand. Be consistent in the off season to build the culture that then leads to the wins on the field, and do that every year leads to the success on the field to get the W's. Okay. So the last question for you. This is the name of the podcast, and my favorite question, and probably the most important question, is what is your why, Coach? Why do you do this?
My why is the kids. growing up, like I told you earlier, my dad, watching his impact, and you don't realize these things till you get older, and then you have kids of your own. Seeing my dad's impact for 20 some years on kids at the Pee Wee level, seeing the impact that my coaches had on me. And again, not even in football, just in baseball growing up. And then when I started playing football, the impact that my high school coach had on me. When I got here, the impact that they had on me. And as you start coaching, early as a young coach, I'll be the first to admit it. I was, okay, I'm coming here for 6 months. I'm getting a job and I'm getting out of here. I'm going to use, and I think it's the same for every young coach. I'm going to use these players to get me where I need to go. And that's as I look back, that was wrong of me.
Right.
My why is to help these kids, because I tell everybody ends up at Butler for a reason. I came here for a reason. I stay here for a reason. You are currently here on this team as either a student coach, an equipment manager, a player, a coach, a trainer. You're here for a reason. What is that reason? And how can I help you? And how can I help you get there? And in all my years, like I could sit here and talk for hours and hours about stories of kids who come from a lot, and kids that come from nothing. And when they got here, they needed help in some way or form. So my why is these kids. How can I help them get to where they want to go? The place that I've been, the place that I played here, I won here, and then I went on. How can I help them get there? And what do I need to do? How hard do I need to work? What do I need to teach them? Because ultimately, when I see them succeed, I've had players FaceTime me after they played in their first NFL game just in tears. I've had players call me after a big game. That's my why, because they get to live their ultimate dream. I got to do mine. I got to live my dream.
Yeah.
I got to do that. I want to see them live their dream, and whatever it is that myself and our staff has to do to help them get there, that's what we're going to do. Now, it's a two-way street. Like they've got to buy into that, and they've got to trust, and it's going to be, like I tell them, it's going to be harder before it ever gets easier. It'll be easy when we retire. Until then, it's going to be hard. There's going to be obstacles every single day. But most important thing is you have a plan, and you have a tight circle of people that you trust to help you get there. But I love my players. I love this program. I love our coaches. I love our administrator. I love everything about this place. And they strive me to be better. I love my wife. She's my why too. Like, what am I doing to help her? Or what am my kids are my why. Right. My ultimate goal in this whole thing is to give back to people, to give back to help people get, because so many people sacrifice for me to be able to sit here with you today. That I just want to have the opportunity to tell them, like, you're my why. Like, I'm going to do whatever I can to help you. Even if there's not a way, to quote Coach Moore, if there's not a way, you find one. I think we've been really, really good at that here over the last 25 or 30 years of finding a way when there's not one, and creating that way to where we need to go.
I love that. I really do. And I was going to ask you next, if we ever have a chance to get you on this on another episode, we'll do it in the off season where it's not so crazy. But there's definitely a few things that I would love to have asked you, and especially, how you said you have some stories. I would love to hear a story one of these days about just some of your craziest and or most, heartfelt or whatever it is, right? The things that make you do it. So I really appreciate you taking the time today to jump on today. I'm not going to lie to you. I wasn't expecting to have this happen to me with you jumping on here, but I couldn't be more thankful. You've given me a lot of gems and a lot of things that I'll take into my coaching experience. And hopefully anybody else who's listening, if you guys are listening this far in, or this far into the episode, there we go. Hopefully you guys have taken some gems as well. If you guys are still listening, if you guys are on YouTube, make sure you guys HTB hit that bell, hit the notification bell, like, subscribe, all that stuff. You guys know what to do. If you're on Apple Podcasts now, we are now there. Spotify and PocketCasts, anywhere else. Make sure you guys leave a review, hit the stars, whatever you say with your chest, because we want to hear it. Coach, I really appreciate you taking the time to jump on here today. Thank you guys for watching. Coach, I appreciate it again. Peace.